Meeting of the Cabinet Committee Equalities, which will be held hybrid in the Council chamber and remotely via Microsoft Teams. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website as soon as possible. Please could everyone ensure that mobile phones are switched off or on silent mode? Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I'll ask officers to present a summary of the key points of reports. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as the chairperson, at all of the times you keep cameras and microphones switched off, as that helps to minimise background noise and interference to ensure the connection remains stable as possible. If members and officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on Microsoft Teams, and I will come to you in order that I receive them. Once you have been called, please lower your hand, and the chat button has been disabled for this meeting in terms of the recording. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting this meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I would also ask the officers to introduce themselves, and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting, to ensure that microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. I will now proceed to the agenda business. Let me just grab the agenda. So first on the agenda is apologies for absence. I haven't received any apologies personally. Has anyone got any apologies? Michael, I see you've got your hand raised.
Thanks, Chair. I received apologies from Councillor Farr.
Right, okay, thank you, that's noted. Has any other member got an apology to pass on? No. Okay, cool. Moving on to point 2, declarations of interest. Has anyone got anything to declare? Councillor Thomas, I see you've got your hand raised.
Thanks very much, Chair. Personal interest for me throughout today's meeting. I work for a registered charity which specialises in housing inequalities. I don't see prejudicial interest on the agenda today, but just a personal interest. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare a prejudicial interest for item 6, as I am a governor for Pencoed Comprehensive and my son also attends the school.
Right, thank you for that, Councillor Evans. I'd also like to declare a personal interest as the chair, as I work for Terence Higgins Trust, which is a charity which works within Equalities, but I do not feel that there is anything on the agenda that is prejudicial. Right, moving on from that, item 3, approval of minutes. Has anyone got any questions or concerns about the previous minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Chair, again. I have noticed my apologies are not recorded for the previous meeting held on the 25th of July, as I was away.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Evans. Michael, could you make sure that's noted in the agenda?
Yes, Chair.
And so could I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes, please?
Happy to move,
Happy
Chair.
to move, Chair.
Great, thanks. And a seconder?
Yeah.
Happy to
Great,
second.
Thank you. Mel, you've got your hand up again. Is there anything else you want to add?
Apologies, Chair, it's a legacy hand.
Great. As I always say in all these meetings, Legacy Hand is going to be the name of my rock band one day. It's going to be great. So I'll just move on to the main part of the agenda. But before we get to the Strategic Equalities Plan annual report, I just wanted to take a moment as the chair of this committee to raise an issue which I think would be remiss if we didn't mention as an Equalities Committee, and that is the FIFA World Cup that's currently taking place in Qatar. And I ask members' indulgence for this a little bit. I sort of had back and forth with the monitoring officer about this yesterday, but I feel like it's probably worth asking for forgiveness rather than anything else. So I will take a moment to say that, you know, I want to congratulate the Welsh men's football team and the FA of Wales for their successful campaign in the World Cup so far, and the first World Cup that Wales has been in since 1958. But I think it is important that we don't ignore the elephant in the room that has been created by the authorities in Qatar and the duplicity of FIFA in holding it in such a repressive nation. And to that point, I think we have to accept that FIFA has put our football team in a difficult position where, when faced with the opportunity to highlight LGBTQ rights in a very small way by allowing a captain of the team to wear a armband, they gave a very clear ruling that they would be faced with sporting sanctions. And I do believe, I'm sorry, I do believe that that is really unfortunate, and we need to call this sort of action out. Football hasn't always been a place where LGBTQ plus people have felt welcome, but the work of many, including the Welsh FA, has done much to change the culture and attitudes in the game, in the UK at least. However, support for LGBTQ plus people isn't something that can be rolled out when convenient. Yeah. We are people. People whose human rights are being violated by a nation that has been given a global platform that demonstrates intolerance, and this shouldn't be acceptable in 2022. FIFA should be using its influence to improve human rights, not to ignore them. I'd also like to note in closing, before coming to the report, that the Iranian team has shown what real allyship can be by refusing to sing their national anthem in the face of threats of violence towards themselves and their families, in order to highlight the plight of many women in Iran. So I just wanted to raise that. I think it's very important that we raised that. And now we'll come on to the main body of the agenda, if that's all right with everyone. So I'd like to ask Alex to present the Strategic Equalities Plan Annual Report 2021-2022.
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Alex Howells, Consultation, Engagement and Equalities Manager. So the purpose of the Strategic Equality Plan Annual Report is to provide the committee with an update on the work completed within the Strategic Equality Plan 2020 to 2024 for the period of 2021 to 2022. The Strategic Equality Plan Annual Report enables the Council to monitor and review progress against its strategic equality objectives. And the annual report must be published by the Council on the website by the 1st of April 2023. So some key points to note from this year's annual report. The Council has held its status as a disability confident employer since 2016 and is due for review in November 2023. Collaboration has taken place between the Council and Remploy, the UK's leading disability specialist in transforming lives through sustainable employment or on recruitment. This has involved supporting their clients to apply for vacancies in the Council, and appointments have been made as a result. The Equality Awareness Workshop has been updated to include unconscious bias, critical thinking and hidden disabilities. 3 workshops have been held with 24 delegates attending. The Council has continued to make progress on appointing apprentices, with 40 employed during 2021 to 2022. And the Council has also employed 2 graduates as part of its corporate graduate programme. There have been regular health and wellbeing employee communications which promote a wide range of physical activities to enable self-help. Some examples include the Cycle to Work scheme, a partnership working with Halo, wellbeing checklist to include physical activity, and World Sleep Day. In 2021, we promoted an online calendar of events for LGBTQ plus History Month. That was shared via our social media and internally with staff. And Proud Councils has also worked together this year to create an art competition around Pride Cymru on the theme Becoming Me. BCBC has continued to work with community and equality groups within the Bridgend Community Cohesion and Equality Forum. Representatives from across a wide range of community organisations meet quarterly to share practice, receive joint briefings and training, and all members are invited to share information about BCCEF with other organisations to increase membership and representation. BCBC has promoted campaigns via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and the BCBC website, including LGBT fostering throughout the year, International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Welsh Language Rights Day, World Mental Health Day, Black History Month, Diwali and Carers' Rights Day, to name just a few. So moving on to the recommendation is the committee notes the progress being made in this report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alex. Could I have a mover for the report?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you, Dep. Could I have a seconder from the membership?
Second the report.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions on the report? Councillor Gebby.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a few questions for you, Alex, please. So bear with me a second while I turn my pages. So some of the work that we've been doing, bearing in mind that it's White Ribbon Day this week, do we hold accreditation as an employer? Because we used to. Do we still hold it, please? That's my first one, but I'll let Alex answer and then I'll come back, please, Chair.
At the moment, our accreditation has lapsed, but the Domestic Violence Team Manager is looking into renewing our accreditation for the next year.
Okay, thanks very much. And you talked about unconscious bias, critical thinking and hidden disabilities with 24 delegates attending this training. Out of a head count of employees, we have 1,232 males and 4,655 female in a head count. Do you think that 24 is an aspirational figure, or do you think actually we should be putting this through the workforce a bit more, please?
We've also got colleagues from the HR department on the call as well, so I'm not sure if Deb would be better placed to answer this question. So I'm not sure if Deb Beek would like to come in.
Thanks for that, Alex. Deb, do you want to come in?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. Sorry for the delay there.
No
There has been other training happening as well. That's not detailed in the report. The report just picks out a snapshot. I take the point. The numbers do look extremely low when compared to the overall size of the council's workforce. What it doesn't do, though, is to show what training has been undertaken previously by employees. So this is not a cumulative figure. It's just what's happened during the reporting period on specific courses that were highlighted as part of the SCP. If members were inclined, at a further committee, we could bring a more detailed report on training attendance.
Thank you for that, Deb. I think that probably would be welcome. Just before going back to Councillor Gebby, I would note as well that Alex and I have had conversations with Chwarae Teg about whether there is something that they can do to help us in this regard. But I'll go back to Councillor Gebby for further questions.
Oh, no further questions, Chair. Alex will be pleased to note, but thank you very much for the report. I'm conscious that not everything is in that report because I'm aware of some awareness raising that we've done separately as part of a council. So everything isn't listed, and I appreciate this is only a snapshot, but I do think we need to get more staff trained in particular issues because I think it's better for our communities, and especially when they're responding to residents. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Gebby. I can see Councillor Spanswick has indicated he wants to ask a question. Councillor Spanswick.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On a similar sort of note, the tool training agenda, we have a lot of work going on at the moment within the Communities Directorate with refurbishing play areas, and there's been a lot of sort of question by some members, this is member training, perhaps officers as well, around inclusivity, accessible equipment, inclusive equipment, equipment suitable for disabled people, and recently I had another email about autistic spectrum disorder and access to players and how children feel within players with all that sort of range of disorder. And I think there's a clear need, not just for officers, but members, some real training to understand the full scope of disabilities and what we are trying to deal with. It's not just a simple, somebody's disabled, they need this or need that. Disability can be seen and not seen. But urgent need for member training.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Spanswick. And I would add to that I know that Andrew Thomas in the Social Services Directorate has done a huge amount of work on this and ensuring that we do have adequate provision across the borough, not just in wards where perhaps members feel like we need provision, but we have taken a lot of time to speak to individuals within the borough who would use these play areas and reflected their needs. So I am very confident that we have done a lot of work to ensure that this is evidence-led and not just dependent on individual members' perhaps particular views on where it is needed. And I know that there is a report coming to Cabinet, I think the next Cabinet on that. So I look forward to welcoming that. But thank you for that, Councillor Spanswick. Can I go to Councillor Amanda Williams, please?
Apologies, my signal is in and out this morning. You said there was a report. I think you've half answered my question. You've said about, because obviously I know in my ward I've got concerns, other people in other wards. Are we going to have the full report and the breakdown of where Andrew Thomas's findings are to show where there's the gap, please? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. Yes, my understanding, I'm pretty sure it's coming to the next Cabinet. I'll have to check that. But in my regular update with Andrew earlier in this week, I do know that we have a full report coming, which can be scrutinised by full council. So I can reassure Councillor Williams that we are having that, and it is a hefty, I believe, 150 pages of detail, so I can reassure her that it will be very exhaustive and will answer many questions. Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. If there are no other questions on this report, Councillor David, I see you've indicated.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Welcome the fact that we've retained our status as a disability confident employer, and that we have interviewed and appointed to roles as a result of our collaboration with Remploy. I don't know if we've got the figures to hand, but I'd be interested in the extent and the progress in this area, because we know that unemployment is still much higher amongst people with disabilities, and unfortunately, and I think it's pleasing to see that we've made progress, but it would be helpful to understand the extent of that progress, and if we could do more, and also if we could do more with some of our partners in the public sector as well, to try and tackle this, because we know that leading a fulfilling work life can be very important to people's quality of life and their quality of opportunity, and this is particularly so for people with disabilities. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Alex, do you want to give a reply to that?
Thank you, Chair. I think again, Deborah Beek might be better placed to answer that question in terms of the recruitment with partnership with Remploy.
Sure. Of course, thanks, Alex. Deb?
Thank you, Chair. I'm having a bit of problem putting my camera on this morning. I'm not trying to avoid questions. Yes, it's really good, the work we've done, and responding to the leader, I absolutely agree. There's always more that can be done. The numbers of people who have been successful in employment through the work with Remploy, they're relatively small. You may say, but success with one person is really good, isn't it? So I think we were talking about half a dozen, but work needs to continue there. But we also use, as part of the having the disability status, confidence award, means that we give priority to applicants who have a disability, to ensure that if they meet the minimum requirements for a role, that they receive an interview, and that's something that's quite active as well. So doing a number of things around that disability agenda, but need to continue working on it, and definitely working with partners as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Deb. I would note as well that we also have the sort of Belief program in Bryngarrow Park as part of Arwen, which I also think should be noted as doing some really good work on this. Councillor Thomas, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Diolch, Chair, and thanks to the team for the report as well. I think it's really useful for members to see a snapshot in time of the makeup of the workforce of the authority. I think that's really, really useful. And I can see, certainly in terms of grievance, that there's been some hyper-analysis, although obviously it can't be reported, but some hyper-analysis of protected characteristics there. I may be looking in the wrong place, but correct me if I'm wrong. I can't see that there's been any hyper-analysis of sickness across protected characteristics. So I wondered if that had been undertaken, and whether or not any particularly prevalent themes have been drawn out, that sickness in any one population group has been identified. Any themes, any trends there? Thanks.
Good question, Councillor Thomas. Deb, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Very good question. We haven't got that analysis. We haven't been doing it. We're responding to the guidance in terms of what information that we have to report. So they are the main themes that we are covering. I think it would be interesting to have a look at it, and I think we can look to do that going forward. We already undertake quite a lot of analysis around absence and look at absence reasons, and committee members have previously influenced how we're actually reporting on some of that. So I think it's something we can pick up going forward, albeit we're not required to report on that as with other areas within this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. I mean, I think the committee would welcome that. It feels like something that is very pertinent, and I thank Councillor Thomas for raising that. Do we have any more questions before we move on? No, I can't see any hands, so I'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the Community Cohesion Annual Report, and I believe we have Lara Rowlands presenting the report. So Lara, could you take us through it, please?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. And thank you for having me. So my name's Lara Rowlands, and I was the Cohesion Officer for Bridgend up until September of this year. I'm currently on secondment to Swansea Council, covering the Regional Community Cohesion Coordinator's role while he's on secondment to Welsh Government. So I'll start off with just by providing a brief background on the Community Cohesion Programme. So in 2018, Welsh Government issued their intention to fund the programme to regional cohesion coordinators. And at that time, Bridgend, Neath Talbot and Swansea made up the Western Bay Cohesion region, and funding was allocated on that basis. The purpose of the role is to deliver on the Welsh Government's National Community Cohesion Delivery Plan. I started the role of the Cohesion Officer in November 2019. And the post was funded until March 2021, so it aligned with around the Brexit deadline. And funding was then extended to March 2022 and extended again until March next year of 2023. The role is based within Bridgend Community Safety Partnership Team, which is a sub-board of the Bridgend Public Service Board, and is very much based on partnership working in order to be more collaborative, to share information and to avoid any duplication of work. Within the report, there's a link on the Community Safety Partnership on the BCPC website for some sort of further information. The National Community Cohesion Delivery Plan has set objectives for the year, and these have differed slightly year on year, depending on the current priorities and any sort of change in landscape. So for this year, from March 2022 onwards, the objectives have been engagement and awareness raising, training and capacity building, tension monitoring and mitigation, inclusive policy and decision making, the prevention of hate, exploitation and extremism. And this year we've had a bespoke priority for the region. So for our region, we're currently supporting the UK and Welsh Government's Ukraine sponsorship scheme and coordinating with partners to share relevant information and support on that scheme. I'll be providing an overview of some of the activities that have taken place this year and what's expected from officers based on these objectives. So in terms of community tensions and hate crime locally, the last 2 years or so, we've seen just a phenomenal amount of change really on a local, national and global level. And this is primarily due to the COVID pandemic. And it makes it quite difficult to understand the underlying causes of community tensions and to identify a singular issue for this. So within the report is a breakdown of national hate crime figures from July to September of this year. And this data was provided by Victim Support. For Bridgend, the figures for this time of year had not increased. However, I think it's worth mentioning that on a national level in England and Wales, there has been an estimated 26% increase in this type of crime. Again, it is difficult to pinpoint a single cause for this. However, we can take into consideration factors such as post-COVID behaviours, the cost of living crisis, Brexit, the effect of the recent conflicts, an increase in quite divisive narratives being shared by quite prominent figures, and the overall sort of feeling really of global crisis. An increase in awareness raising around hate crime and hate incidents could also affect figures. However, crime is generally underreported, and hate crime is no exception to that. And race-related incidents have been the most frequently reported form of hate crime nationally, and this has been the case for some years now. So just an update on progress up to date. So the officer has worked on the objectives of the Community Cohesion Delivery Plan, with the first theme being engagement. And since the pandemic and the ease of COVID restrictions, there's been a mix of online and face-to-face engagement taking place. So for example, some of the work that has taken place includes partnership working with organisations such as TAF Housing, third sector partners, Bridgend Housing, in providing ongoing support for schemes such as the Afghan resettlement scheme and families that are now reaching the end of the Syrian resettlement scheme. And engagement is really important for the cohesion team during national weeks, and this is all focused on raising awareness of specific issues. So, for example, running social media campaigns during Hate Crime Awareness Week, Black History Month and Refugee Week, and mixing that now with some face-to-face engagement. So holding engagement tables across the county and providing opportunities for residents when possible to engage. And another example for the Hate Crime Awareness Week this year, the officer coordinated a film afternoon for Bridgend College students as part of their cinema club, with screenings of films that have anti-discrimination messages. An example of some online engagement would be a photo competition for Interfaith Week on the theme of a place where you feel the most connected to your faith. Running online dance exercise workshops for residents to celebrate Diwali, and collaborating with partners such as Bridgend College to promote their English as a second language department. In terms of more face-to-face engagement, this year the officer worked with Barvo in coordinating the volunteer awards, which was all focused on celebrating communities that volunteered throughout the pandemic. We had around 140 in attendance for that event. And creating engagement opportunities for our minority communities through initiatives such as International Cafe. So this was coordinated by the officer and the Bridge Mentoring Scheme and run at the Zone. And the initiative was initially presented to myself as a drop-in cafe for Ukrainian refugees. However, the project went ahead as an international cafe to ensure that we're being inclusive of all communities and all nationalities. And since the establishment of the cafe, the centre has seen an increase in the general use of their services by the international community. And due to its success, it's an initiative now that we're hoping to develop it in other parts of the region. For the objective of training and capacity building, several training and awareness sessions have been delivered over the past year. And this includes refugee and asylum seekers training during Refugee Week, and this was delivered by Displaced People in Action, and sharing information on the asylum and refugee process and the barriers that the community might face, and how staff and key partners can help identify and tackle these barriers and understand which organisations are available for signposting. Far-right visuals and propaganda training to staff and to counsellors, and this was delivered by the Head of Criminology at Swansea University. And further far-right extremism and awareness training has been delivered by Small Steps organisation, which are an organisation that are made up of former far-right members, so they provide their first-hand experience of being a part of the far-right and who could be vulnerable to radicalisation and the support that's available. This was delivered to staff and to external key partners, and we've had around 117 attendees take part in these sessions across 6 sessions this year. Understanding unconscious bias and cultural competence training was delivered by Imperial College London, and challenges and barriers faced by the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community. The officer also delivered the Ask and Act training to staff from various departments this year, so focusing on domestic violence and culturally specific issues such as honour-based violence and the barriers to disclosure for women from ethnic minority communities. And with the increase in online community groups since the pandemic, delivering sessions on creating safe online spaces has been increasingly important, and this will be delivered this month. This will be specifically for online group admins and supporting them in creating safe online spaces. So things like creating community guidelines and identifying hateful language and how to safely report this. And due to the nature of the role, it's quite important to keep up to date with current issues and any sort of changes. And as a result, the officer regularly attends workshops and forums such as the Nation of Sanctuary training, diversity and democracy workshops, reaching the hard to reach workshops, and the points-based immigration system and the status of EU citizens sessions. And attending these workshops and forums helps to identify potential trends and potential gaps in knowledge or awareness raising, which then affects what sort of training and sessions that we then deliver. For the objective of inclusive policy and decision making, the officer has supported the Welsh Government's consultation and response to the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. This is really quite a big piece of work and is thought to influence the future National Cohesion Delivery Plan later down the line. Ensuring consultations consider the needs and include the views of all communities, such as working with colleagues on the Public Service Board's Wellbeing Plan, supporting new research in the Prevent e-learning module, and working with comms in the promotion on support for qualifying citizens to register to vote. And this is available on the BCPC website and was promoted through social media at that time. And being an active member of grant panels as well is quite important for this theme. So, for example, the Wales Community Volunteer Association grant panel and Comic Relief Organisational Growth panel. So being a part of these panels, I'm ensuring that inclusive decision making throughout the grant allocation process and that the cohesion objectives are met. and recently establishing our own cohesion small grant fund. So purpose of this fund is to engage with grassroots community groups that may face barriers to funding or perhaps need a bit more support in their development, and working in partnership with our local volunteer sectors on this project to try and create more resilient and independent communities. On the theme of tension monitoring and mitigation, alongside community and stakeholder engagement, work does continue on tension monitoring within local communities, and tensions identified by partners are reported via the tension monitoring system, which is through the Safer Bridgend mailbox. Weekly virtual meetings are held between the cohesion officers and South Wales Police, and fortnightly updates on community tensions and hate crime figures are sent to Welsh Government by the officer. And the officer has been the Secretariat for the Prevent Channel panel for the past year. So the panel takes referrals for those who are at risk of being radicalised, which involves sharing partnership scanning requests on behalf of the Wales Extremism and Counter-Terrorism Unit, as well as providing the local cohesion update for the regional prevent and contest boards. The officer has been working with Swansea University in developing their smart partnership application. So this will hopefully fund a graffiti reporting app specifically to help tackle hate-related graffiti, and it will potentially be piloted in Bridgend for specific staff before being rolled out to other regions. And we're just waiting on the outcome of that application. Also working with community safety partners in developing a positive messages campaign for Bridgend. So again, focusing on graffiti hotspots and replacing any hateful graffiti with counter narratives through things like community murals. And these positive messages will be specific to Bridgend. Again, due to the nature of the role, it's quite important to engage in attending workshops and forums. So, for example, I'm a member of the National Prevent Extremism Forum, the Forum for Anti-Asylum, Hate and Crime, and the Western Bay Anti-Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking Forum. The Hate Crime in Schools project was commissioned by Welsh Local Government Association and delivered by Show Racism and the Red Card, which is an ongoing project. There's a lot of delays due to COVID with that specific project. And within the report is some feedback from pupils and teachers that took part in the training. And it was rated between 70 and 100%. So overall good for quality of training, awareness raising of hate crime, and understanding the actions needed if an incident did arise. For the time of the for the theme of bespoke priority, which for our region is supporting the UK and Welsh Government's Ukraine sponsorship schemes. The officers worked with several organisations such as the Ukraine SPOC and Housing, TAF Housing, local third sector and voluntary partners, Bridgend College, and is a member of the Refugee and Asylum Seeker Working Group and Support Group, which is currently being run by Barvo. Purpose of this group is to ensure inclusivity and sharing intelligence and identifying any gaps in support for new arrivals and for hosts at the earliest stage possible. So in terms of future arrangements for the programme, at the moment, Welsh Government has not yet made a decision on whether the programme will be funded past March 2023. A rapid review of the plan was conducted by Diverse Cymru over the past year, and it was finalised in September. However, I don't think it's actually been published yet, and this is thought to shape the delivery plan in future years if funding is granted. And that's it from me. I'm happy to take questions. Sorry, I know I talked your ear off. But, yeah.
Thank you for that, Lara. It was really interesting, and don't worry about talking our year off. We love to hear this stuff. And I think I would lend my support. I think community cohesion is extremely important. I do hope that Welsh Government does look at the funding sooner rather than later. I think we all accept that where we are as a society right now isn't the easiest place in the world. We are seeing and have seen over the last couple of years an uptick in hate crimes, and there's always debate on some platforms as to whether it's just more people reporting, but the fact is that these crimes do happen, whether it's being reported more now or not. They are a reality of people's everyday lives, and that needs to be solved and needs to be changed. I guess the one question from me is, have we seen or how are we working on the possibility that as our Ukrainian guests come to an end of the hosting period of their visa, have we seen sort of an uptick in tension in communities around that? It was one of my big concerns is that the sort of initial welcome that was offered is going to sort of run out at some point. And I think there was a lot of feeling that when we issued these visas that people would maybe be here for 6 months or a year at most and then go back to Ukraine. And obviously with the current situation, that doesn't seem that likely. Have we seen any sort of uptick in tensions there?
It's quite interesting actually, because as you mentioned at the beginning of the crisis, they had the Ukraine scheme had a very different response to, say, for example, the Afghan scheme. People have generally been very welcoming and very supportive, and we haven't seen an increase in community tensions relating to the Ukraine scheme, or, for example, any anti-Russian rhetoric or anything like that. And we have considered the fact that the cost of living crisis could change this, but at the moment we haven't actually seen an increase in community tensions. What we have seen, for example, is I think, you know, housing are leading on the Ukraine scheme, and they probably would be best placed to provide specific data. But we have seen a small amount of hosts in the area where perhaps the relationship may have broken down, and families have been able to have additional housing or support that way. But there's a lot of initiative at the moment from Welsh Government and from the Wales Housing Justice as well on strengthening hosts and family relations. So delivering things like workshops specifically for hosts under the Homes for Ukraine scheme, providing support directly for hosts to try and increase the longevity of the stay so that it doesn't get to 6 months and the relationship is broken down. So it's all about strengthening that relationship until further support and accommodation can be put in place for any families that may need it. And what we've also seen as well under the Ukraine scheme is that most people come here and they want to start working straight away. They've already got really good qualifications. They want to start training. And in most cases, people have really got on well with their hosts, but obviously, of course, in any situation, there's going to be a small percentage where there is a relationship breakdown. But as I said, there's been an initiative really from Welsh Government where there's actually a focus on supporting hosts and their well-being and strengthening that relationship to try and prevent that relationship breakdown. If that answers your question.
Thank you for that, Laura. Yes, it answered the question very well. It was a bit remiss of me. I haven't asked for a mover or a seconder. So could I have a mover or seconder for the report, please?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thanks, Leader and Dep. And now I'll go to my hands up. So the first one I have is Councillor Amanda Williams, please.
Thanks very much. I've got 2 questions if possible. I had one question, but your question has led to another one for me. It was on the Ukrainian scheme, and I've got concerns firstly with regards to the well-being of some Ukrainians. I heard a story yesterday of somebody in Coity who'd had somebody staying with them, and their well-being was at rock bottom, and they were saying that that's quite general, that a lot of people, like you said, have come over here extremely educated, and yet they're being felt like they're given the dishwasher and cleaning jobs and things like that, and it's quite demoralizing. And I'll give another example. And 2 other people had jobs in a retailer. What they thought was stocking shelves, when they went to start their work were told, no, actually, you're just cleaning. and these are educated people. So my first question is, what can we do to support these individuals, because they've been through a lot, and before they even got here, their well-being is going to be at rock bottom. But how do we support their well-being and ensure that they are getting that support and they're not made to feel like that, and that there are equal opportunities? So that's my first question. My second one is on hate crime, if possible.
Okay, no problem. I think yes, it's a really good question and a really valid point. It's something that I think a lot of people are experiencing. What we're doing at the moment, we're working with organisations such as Displaced People in Action, Settled Organisation, and with partners such as Department for Work and Pensions, in getting citizens who are fully qualified in a specific area, and basically getting it recognised here, translated and recognised here, so that it can actually be put to use. So people can start applying for those more high skill jobs or an area of work that they're already qualified in. So we're currently working with these organisations and signposting to these organisations. So for example, Displaced People in Action have a programme where medical professionals can basically get the equivalent of their qualification recognised here and translated here, so that they can actually practice medicine in the UK without having to go through training again, that kind of thing. So at the moment, that's what we're trying to focus on, is signposting to those agencies that we know that have those programmes in place.
Great, thanks. Because I think part of the problem is obviously they go into the job centre and they have to report in each week, and they're giving them any jobs and saying, well, you need to take these jobs because they're jobs. Otherwise you can't get benefits. And I think sometimes it's demoralising when you're sent to clean toilets and things when you've got some of these people have got 2 degrees and you know, extremely intelligent. So my second question is on the hate crime figures. I think they're very low. I have concerns that the Bridgend figures are very low, and I have concerns about what the police are recording as hate crime. And I'll give you an example where I've had a couple of hate crime, what I would class as hate crime, through disability or same-sex relationships. And I've had residents in my ward who have experienced issues with that. But because it's from individuals within their own street, it's being classed as a neighbourhood dispute, not a hate crime. And their hate, where they would have had hate crime package in place, it's been removed because they've said, well, actually, because you live in the same street, that's going to be a neighbourhood dispute. And I think that's wrong. And I have concerns that some of these are being recorded as neighbourhood disputes when they should be hate crime. And it's how we can work with the police to ensure that they are reporting them properly. Thanks.
So within the reports, I know I've only provided really a small snapshot of figures between July and September, and this is data that's only come from victim support, so I haven't included any police data within the reports. What usually happens is if there's a change in language in an incident, that usually sort of tips it over to a hate incident or a hate crime, depending on the language used. So what we find a lot of the cases is usually antisocial behaviour or a neighbour dispute, and then certain language has been used and that tips it over so that it's a hate incident or a hate crime. There's something that I can feed back to colleagues in Bridgend Police if there's something that that's a concern and is something that residents have raised. I'm more than happy to feed that back to the local hate crime officer.
Great, thanks very much. I think certainly some of my instances I've got a complaint I'm in the middle of writing to the police, because I think the hate crime department or the officer is saying it's a hate crime, and then it's been overruled by other members, by the more senior officers, and I think that's where there's a problem, because these individuals are not getting the support that they require then. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams, and that is quite a concerning thing, and thank you for bringing that to the committee. Perhaps, Alex, could I ask that we maybe look at getting someone from SWP to come and speak to the committee on this, because I think that is quite a concerning issue. If things that are being perpetrated because of protected characteristics aren't being listed as hate crimes. That is something that we as a committee, I think, should take an interest in. So thank you very much to Councillor Amanda Williams for raising that. I'll go to my next hand up. So Councillor Peniel Thomas, please.
Yeah, thanks, Diolch again, Chair, and thank you, Laura, for the report. I would echo the Chair's sentiments in praising the effective community cohesion and the projects that have come forward. Can see lots of stuff going on at a grassroots level as well as a strategic level. And I think certainly in my experience, the smallest projects, the smallest gestures can often have the biggest and most long-lasting impact. So well done on that work, and I really hope to see it continue. I just wanted to touch really quickly, Councillor Amanda Williams has already raised it, and it would be really good. So for me in the report, it's a bit of a missing piece of the jigsaw around the reporting of hate crime. Anecdotally, I think we're all agreed that there appears to be some underreporting of hate crime. So I would be really interested to know, perhaps from victim support in a future meeting, or South Wales Police, what confidence victims have in the reporting mechanisms that exist, and what confidence they have in seeking and actually receiving justice. And as a rider to that, I feel that another part of the jigsaw that's missing is whether or not these reports have concluded with a satisfactory outcome for those victims. So I think that would be really useful to see. Really disappointed, obviously, to see race crime, hate crime, particularly prevalent in Bridgend. And I think in your opening remarks, Laura, you mentioned high-profile people in the public sphere. I appreciate you can't be political, but as a politician, I can be, specifically referring to the former Prime Minister, the current Home Secretary, who are using language which is deeply offensive and completely and utterly inappropriate. I think, yeah, many members, I think, would agree with that. But really good just to get those missing pieces of the jigsaw, just to better understand what confidence victims have in the system. Anecdotally, as I've already mentioned, that I think there's a lot of skepticism, cynicism about, if I report this, will I be understood? Will I be treated as a victim? Will I get justice delivered? I think that would be really useful. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And I think we all recognise that issue, and you know, it's not a new issue in terms of hate crime, as to whether people with protected characteristics feel that reporting it is actually worth almost the hassle of reporting it, and that is something we need to tackle. I would say as well, though, that within the cohesion group within Bridgend, we do often have South Wales Police come and report to us on actions. So I think perhaps what we can do is look at, as already mentioned, whether we can get them to come and speak to us about that, and start talking about how we can improve that experience and improve the confidence of members of the community to report these issues when they arise, and feel confident they will get the justice that is deserved. Laura, do you want to make any comments on Councillor Peniel Thomas's question?
Yeah, so for your first question, I think a lot of it comes down to understanding the barriers to disclosure for specific communities, which is something that we do try and incorporate in our training and awareness sessions for staff and for partners. For example, our Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community, reported incidents from that community in particular is very low. So for staff and for stakeholders to understand what those barriers are is a bit like the first step, really, in understanding what we can do and who we can signpost to for support. I'm more than happy to contact victim support for further information on things like the referral process and the aftercare process. I think they'll be more than happy to attend any sort of meetings if that's something that you want to do in the future. And in terms as well of race-related hate crime, and perhaps certain figures in society creating quite divisive languages, what we try and do in response to that is to create counter narratives. So we try and create counter narratives with things like our training and our information sessions. for example, the Small Steps organisations, they're an organisation that's made up of former far right-wing members, and they have a whole segment on how to develop and how to share counter-narratives with individuals that may be prone to radicalisation or are already sort of in the process of being radicalised. And what we try and do from an engagement point of view as well is things like, as I mentioned, the Positive Messages campaign in Bridgend. This is a campaign that's been run in other regions and it was really successful. So it's something that we want to run here. So in, say, graffiti hotspots, we're trying to replace hateful language, hateful graffiti with general positive messages that are specific to Bridgend. So not mentioning any specific communities, but just making it a general positive message so that we don't come across as though we got an agenda, but we're trying to create a more cohesive atmosphere. And we will do that through social media campaigns as well. But it's an ongoing battle, if I'm allowed to say that. But it is an ongoing work, and I think persistence with that kind of thing is key.
Thank you for that, Laura. And I think the graffiti thing is a point very well made. We've seen an awful lot of success with that in Cardiff and other areas where embracing communities and showing a positive message of almost, you know, the community that you want to be sort of undermines significantly the pressures that this sort of graffiti creates. So thank you for that response, Laura. Do I have any other questions before we move on this report? No? Okay, cool. Thank you, Lara, for delivering the report to us. We'll move on now to the next thing on the agenda, which is item number 6, which is the annual update report on progress made with meeting the objectives within the Welsh Language Standards 5-year strategy. So could I have Alex to deliver the report, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to update Cabinet Committee Equalities on the work undertaken to meet the objectives within the Welsh Language Standards 5-year strategy during the period 2021 to 2022. So in terms of general updates, there's been 2 key Welsh language consultations that have taken place in 2021 to 2022. Stakeholders from across the borough were asked to share their views on the draft Welsh language objectives, and the public consultation closed on the 18th of June 2021 and was published on the council website on the 1st of September 2021. We also went out to consultation with the Welsh and Education Strategic Plan. This launched on the 27th of September, and the results from the consultation were used to inform the final WES, which has been in place since September 2022. So monitoring is carried out monthly to identify the demand for Welsh services across all access channels within customer services, including telephone, face-to-face, email and online. With there being more English-speaking customers over the phone, an option has been introduced to arrange a call back with a Welsh speaker if none are available at the time of calling. In terms of recruitment, online recruitment is available in Welsh to enable the submission of Welsh applications, and we continue to advertise vacancies via Menter Bwagwr. There's a rolling calendar of Welsh language activities and events still in place, and details are shared across internal and external communication channels such as press, social media and Bridgenders, depending on the target audience and the nature of the event. So during the period, the following activities and events have been promoted. Welsh Language Rights Day, Diwrnod Shwmae Shwmae, Dydd Misl Cymru, and also the construction of the Welsh Medium Childcare Facility in Blackmill and the construction of the Welsh Medium Childcare Facility in Betws. So the 4 early years settings that were planned for Betws, Ogmore Valley, Porthcawl and Bridgend Town. The Betws building is now complete and was handed over to the local authority on the 7th of November 2022. And the childcare facility in Blackmill is due for handover towards the end of December. We continue to monitor the number of 7-year-olds being taught through the medium of Welsh by referring to the Year 3 population. There has been a slight decrease in the percentages reported this year, but there's been a significant amount of promotional work undertaken to encourage more families to consider Welsh medium education for their children. So given that these are pitched at mothers from birth, we anticipate we'll see the increase in around 4 years' time. So the Council monitors the transition from primary provision to secondary provision with the aim to improve transition rates and increase retention of children in the Welsh medium education in foundation phase and Key Stage 2. The report gives information on the transition rates from 2016, but as you can see from the report, in summer 2021, there were 132 children in Year 6 in the Welsh primary schools, and the number of Year 7 then moving on in Ysgol Gyfan Gymraeg Llangynoedd was 130, so not a massive decrease there. The collaboration between Ysgol Gyfan Gymraeg Llangynoedd and Llanhari is still going strong to ensure that there's a good provision and good A-level choices for Welsh medium students. And then in terms of progress in increasing capacity in the Welsh medium sector, work is progressing on the enlargement of Ysgol Ferchysge, with the replacement school anticipated to open in September 2024. And in regards to the enlargement of Ysgol Bro, the statutory process has now concluded and the outcome was reported to Cabinet in October. Cabinet determined to proceed with the proposal and to co-locate the Bridgend Town Welsh Medium Childcare Facility on the same site as the replacement school. In regards to supporting the Welsh language in flying start settings, in order to increase the number of Welsh medium childcare places in the county, the flying start setting at Bracla will become a Cylchmaethrin in the afternoon sessions from January 2023. A booklet has also been developed entitled Why Choose Welsh Medium Education. This has been developed in conjunction with Welsh language partners, and once this has been finalised, it will be provided to parents at the birth of their child, at the 18th month home visit by a Flying Start health visitor, and also shared on the BCBC website. Finally, BCBC has continued to work in partnership with Urdd Gobaith Cymru to deliver school half-term activities, and as you can see from the report, there has typically been a very good uptake on these activities. So the recommendation for this report is for the committee to note the progress that's been made in the last year. Thank you.
Diolch, Alex. Could I have a mover and seconder for the report, please?
Happy to move, Chair. Oh,
Great.
I'll second.
Thank you both. I can see we have a hand raised from Councillor Della Hughes. Councillor Hughes, please.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, and thanks for the report. It's great to see that the new centre in Blackmill is nearing completion. I'm just wondering, really, as a little while ago when we had a briefing from the Directorate, we were told that at that point there wasn't a lot of interest from providers to go in and actually provide that service there, and that maybe there would be some discussions with the Welsh Government on how we can take that forward. So I'm just wondering, really, has anybody come forward with an interest to provide that, the service there? And if they haven't, what are the options, and what are we going to do to ensure that's up and running really as soon as possible? Thank you.
Thank you, Dalla. I can see Lindsay wants to come in here. Lindsay, do you have a response for Councillor Hughes?
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Lindsay Harvey. I'm Corporate Director for Education and Family Support. Thanks for the question. Yes, a couple of things just to update you on. Actually, this week, the last couple of days, we've run an extensive marketplace event for providers to try and attract Welsh medium childcare providers into that setting and the other settings that we provided. In addition, we had a very profitable meeting with Bridgend College last week, looking at two things really. One is to try and support provision in those areas, but also to provide employment opportunities for our young people to go into that as a vocation. And that was a very good discussion we are now following up with the college. In addition to that, as you quite rightly note, Councillor Hughes, we're working Welsh Government on that, because one of the things we are trying to do is if there are providers in other areas where we can use them and build on their expertise, and then for them to come into the area to provide local employment, clearly that's something we want to do. But through you, Chair, we'd be more than happy to provide an update following the marketplace event this week, and that should give you a further indication of where we are with that.
Great, thank you for that, Lindsay. Councillor Hughes, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you, Rhys.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor David, please, the leader. And
Thank
Welsh
you,
champion, I should add. We should
yeah,
genuflex
indeed,
when we call you.
I just wanted to welcome the initiative in Bracla and that new afternoon session of the Celtic Maithrin in the Flying Start at that would be a Bracla Primary School, wouldn't it, Lindsay? And I think it complements as well. It's not provision we've had before, but I think it complements and supports the development of the new Welsh medium childcare provision at Bro. And in a related point, I'll obviously note that we haven't seen the growth in numbers of pupils in Welsh medium provision that we would have liked to have seen, but that expansion that's going to happen very quickly in terms of the temporary provision, new temporary provision at Bro, and then the permanent, we hope, expansion once we've completed that process around the relocation of Bro, will make a significant difference, Lindsay, because we know that there has been oversubscription for places at Bro. So I'm sure there's confidence, but I wanted to check that confidence is still there, that when we develop those additional places at Bro, those places will be filled and they will increase potentially quite significantly the overall numbers of pupils in Welsh medium provision. And in case they don't get the opportunity to just say bendigedig da iawn to Afnyfelin Primary School. I'm really stretching my vocabulary here. Afnyfelin and Litcher Primary School on achieving the Gold Award. And I wanted to ask if there were other schools. I'm pretty sure there are, but I want to check that there are other English medium schools that are making equally important strides around that development of Welsh language within English medium school settings. And then finally, if we can, I'm sure members can help with this, we can perhaps promote both the Garw provision and the Ogmore provision, the new childcare provision, because it is really exciting opportunities for those valleys. And I'm sure when some of the potential providers see the quality of that provision and the facilities available, I'm confident that we will see greater level of interest in that provision. Thanks so much, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. And just on that, I think it should be noted, speaking as a member from the Ogmore Valley, I think these are great resources, and I really do think it is a wonderful opportunity for people within our valleys to attend these wonderful new facilities. Lindsay, do you want to come back on the leader's questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader. So a number of questions there. I think I've made a note of all of them, so please correct me if I don't cover them. First of all, you asked the question around the growth that's available within Bro. Absolutely, yes, you'll be aware that there is temporary provision that's going into the new school that will certainly help before the new school is built. The new school is a significantly larger school, and this school is going to be something special. We're fully hoping that this school will really build on the excellent standards that's currently in Bro and provide the learners and the community of Bracla and that area of Bridgend with world-class provision for Welsh learners. Also, as part of our Welsh Education Strategic Plan, we're obviously looking at building Welsh language provision across the county. Members will be aware that we're looking not just in Bracla, but also developing significantly Ysgol y Ferch in the Connelly area of Bridgend. And also, over the next couple of years, we're looking at a Welsh medium seedling school in the Porthcawl area. In addition to that, we are looking at additional provision in the southeast of the county, where there is additional demand, and that's obviously determined as part of our WESP. The leader has also referred to the success of our schools with regard to Campus Cymraeg. Yes, I can give assurances that that's prevalent in a number of English medium schools. And one point to note that as of at the start of this academic year, Bridgend County Borough Council had more gold standard schools than any other local authority in the Central South Consortium region. So again, very positive result for our WESP. And I think the key thing is more generally, as outlined in the report that Alex has presented, is there's a number of areas really to maintain that growth at different stages. So obviously making sure that the throughput from very early years settings, Cilth Maithrin, Mudiad Maithrin supported provision, then extends into the primary sector and then goes into the secondary sector. So all of this has been considered at different points, and that's also aided by a very positive message that we're sending out to families through our family support channels. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch, Lindsay. Have we got any more questions on this report? No, I don't see anyone indicating. So I'll move us on to be fair, a very similar topic. So item number 7 on the agenda is an update report on the implementation of the Welsh Language Measurement 2011 and Welsh Language Standards. Alex, could you take us through the report, please?
Of course, thank you, Chair. So this report it just gives members an update on the implementation of the Welsh Language Standards, and a version of this report is presented at every Cabinet Equalities Committee to keep everybody up to date. So in terms of key progress or updates with compliance since the last report that was presented in July 2022, following a complaint from the Commissioner regarding the Mynydd Cymfig consultation, where it was found that BCBC had not fully considered the effects the enlargement of the Mynydd Cymfig primary school would have on the Welsh language, new guidance and a new Welsh language impact assessment has been developed, which will need to be completed for all new strategies. These guidelines aim to assist officers in ensuring that the above considerations are an integrated aspect of policy development within Bridgend County Borough Council. And it'll also ensure that decision makers are aware of their duties when making a decision. And then the second complaint that we've received from the Commissioner in this period is regarding our website. So we received a complaint from the Commissioner on the 18th of August regarding an issue on our website. In the complaint, it was identified that BCBC's website had errors on the Welsh version of the internet. So BCBC went back to the Commissioner to submit some evidence, and on the 21st of August, we received a response to state that the Commissioner would be undertaking a full investigation of this complaint. So we'll be working with the Commissioner going forward to answer their further questions and awaiting an outcome of that complaint then. But there's no further outstanding reports to give an update to the committee on. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I think I would just note as well, speaking as the chair, that I know officers wouldn't raise it like this, but the way in which the Commissioner sort of works with us, I think, does need some scrutiny, and I think from my point of view, I'll be considering writing to the Commissioner, because I think having a situation where we know that a complaint has been made, but not having the details of that complaint until they decide what they're doing with the complaint really leaves us in a bit of a difficult situation, where it seems to me that the Welsh Language Commissioner is largely there to aggrandise themselves rather than assist local authorities in achieving the aims of the Welsh Language Act. So that is something that I will be looking at, and it is something that I find quite concerning. Thank you, Alex, for that report. Could I firstly have a mover and a seconder, please? JP, as you've got your hand up, I expect you to move it.
If I'm allowed to ask a question and move it, then yes, I'll move it.
Oh, I
Chair.
guess I'll be generous. If you could move it, that would be great. Could I have a seconder before we take JP's question, please?
Second report, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Spanswick. Okay, Councillor Blundell, you can ask your question now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. No, I was just wondering if obviously myself and Cabinet are quite aware of the Mynydd Config ruling and the proposals that are the work that is ongoing there. But I was just wondering for other members who aren't as understanding of what's going on, could Lindsay outline that for members as well, what's going on, and that the fact this isn't actually an enlargement of the school?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you for that, Councillor Blundell. Lindsay, could you give us an update for the service of members? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, of course. Thanks, Councillor Blundell. Yes, that is the case. If I take you back to the consultation initially, obviously with all work we do on schools where it's required, we undertake a consultation, and as part of that consultation we undertake an equalities impact assessment. With regard to the school in Mynydd Config, because it's an English medium school and we are not extending the capacity of the school from its current level, essentially we are bringing two differently located sites together. We understood at the time that the equalities impact assessment would cover that because there would be no visible impact on Welsh media provision in the area. Coupled with that, obviously, we are building a significantly larger Welsh medium school of Erchysgai, as I referred to in a previous response. However, the Welsh Language Commission has determined differently. The recommendations are legally binding, Chair, and obviously from an officer point of view, we will undertake those with diligence. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. I would just note from a politician's level rather than an officer's level is that additional to that, I do think that the Commission seems to have is a bit of a movable feast in what they think is appropriate and not appropriate, and that is something that I think we are dealing with as an authority dealing with the relatively new Commission and how they treat their powers. So that is something that I'm looking at, and thank you to Lindsay for that update. I can see the leader has indicated he wants to raise a question. So a leader, Councillor David, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As this complaint, and this is about our decision-making process as a cabinet, effectively, I wanted to be clear with colleagues that it was certainly at the forefront of my mind when making decisions around Mynydd Config Primary School as one of the local members for Mynydd Config Primary School and Erchysgai. It's quite clear in my mind, was quite clear in my mind when I was making the decision, it was part of my decision, that I knew obviously that we were planning a major expansion of Erchysgai. That is the Welsh medium primary school for Config Hill, the community that is served by Mynydd Config Primary School as the English medium school. Now, that may not have been included in a very lengthy separate document, but it was certainly a consideration for me, and in fact it was so obvious to me, and I'm sure it was obvious to other cabinet members, because actually we have made those decisions over the same time period, that it wasn't necessary for me to see that in a lengthy document. So I wanted to make that point, because I think there's a clear difference between whether or not, for me, a decision maker has considered it, or whether or not the decision maker has seen that in Appendix 25. And I don't think the two necessarily need to equate, particularly when the cabinet proposals to cabinet around Erchysgai have been considered in a series of reports to cabinet, but obviously we'll wait and see the outcome of this process. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to make that lengthy contribution. but I think it's important, and I can't speak for other cabinet colleagues, but I'm sure they're all aware, and I know that from our discussions about the plans. I know you're all aware about the plans for Ddechrau Scare, because we've considered that and made a decision on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Leader. And as I say as well, you know, I do welcome that contribution from the Leader, because I think it is important that we get the Commission to understand that things need to be looked at in the round. And, you know, this isn't the only thing that is being looked at once, and we do see multiple things. And, you know, I know, as all Cabinet members will know, that Welsh language provision is at the forefront of a lot of our discussions. And I think that is something that needs to be raised. And to be blunt, I will be very disappointed if I see a response from the Commissioner that is against us, because I do think that we are doing an awful lot of work as a borough to ensure that Welsh language provision is provided, and provided at a really high level, and I know we're invested in that. So, you know, thank you, Leader, for that contribution. Councillor Williams, I saw you put your hand up and then it went down, so I just wanted to check if you wanted to come in at all.
Well, I suppose I just wanted to second what the Leader said, really. I mean, you know, like, I mean, I'm convinced that as an authority, we are very supportive of the Welsh language. We do an enormous amount to meet that aspiration of 1 million Welsh speakers, and you know, it's disappointing really if the Welsh you know, Language Commissioner takes a contrary view to that. I suppose just one thing though, I want to maybe take this opportunity of mentioning, because I was at a WLGA meeting last week, and there is this kind of a feeling across Wales that regulators need to be mindful of the financial position authorities find themselves in. And, you know, I mean, it's not that we don't intend to do something, but it just might take a little bit longer. And, you know, we got to be mindful of the constraint on resources that's available to us at this moment in time. So I just like to make that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. And I think that is an important point, that while I think we can all welcome that Wales has several acts that ensure that we are meeting Welsh language provision or future generations or equalities, we all also have to be mindful of how we do that. And I think that is an important point and very well made. Do we have any other contributions before I move on and close the meeting? No? Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for attending. I believe that's the end of the agenda. I don't believe we have any urgent items. So thank you all for attending. I look forward to seeing you again at the next meeting, and I'll close this meeting here. Thank you all.